For those that y'all don't know, I'm Nathan. I'm Dennis and Mitzi's favorite child. If you don't know, I'm their only child, so I can say that freely. You know, I've given more than my fair share of speeches in my lifetime and remarks, but this is certainly one I wasn't prepared to give, and certainly one with the most emotion and gravity. Honor your father and mother. That's one of the first verses we learn as young kids. Right about the same time as John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. My dad is physically not with us today, but we know that his spiritual body is with the Lord and his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. You know, it's difficult seeing your hero age in front of your eyes. My dad's physical health had faded over the past year, but through it all, my mom never left his side. Not once, not even for 30 minutes. For the past year, she would drag him places she had meetings or lunches so that he would be within eyesight should he need a thing from her. And even though Dad acted like he didn't like going with her, I know that inside he loved the attention that he received from my mom, always putting him first in everything they did. On behalf of the family, I want to thank each of you for not only being here today, but for being a part of my dad's and my mom's life. You are family, you are friends, and my dad put family and friends above everything in life except God. His faith was most important, then family and friends. Y'all know my dad was a private man, and he would not want all the fuss that's happening here today over him. Sure, when he was around a group of friends, he'd make everyone laugh and smile, but ultimately, if the choice was up to him, he would choose just to spend time with Mom. Just the two of them, at home, in their beach condo, at breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Y'all know they ate out a lot. Anywhere, just the two of them. That's all he wanted was time with Mom. Mom and Dad first met on a church retreat, and it was their first church retreat for both of them 62 years ago. He said that he knew then that he would marry my mom, but what he didn't know was the impact that he would have on so many lives. Courage and generosity are the traits I'll remember most about my dad, who JC and Emma, my children, along with many of others, lovingly called Big D for the last 2 decades of his life. You know, many of y'all knew my dad before I did. You spent time with him riding bikes on Verner Street, fishing or skiing at the lake, or just doing typical things teenagers do growing up in Columbia. Some of y'all knew Dad in his college days. Like me, my dad went to USC. He was a proud graduate of the University of South Carolina. Like me, he enjoyed the college experience outside the classroom a little bit more than he did on the inside of the classroom. And all that fun led to him to make a decision that to this day impressed me. And it showed me the courage that he had and that he continued to have throughout his life. He signed up to serve his country, and as y'all heard, he ended up being in Vietnam and a combat vet. By God's grace, he made it through that combat service, and he made it home just 5 days before the date that Mom had put on the calendar for their big wedding. Y'all know how my mom likes to plan. She's been like that her whole life. Oh, and by the way, I should add that before y'all get home tonight, you'll check your mailbox, and I'm sure there'll be a thank you card from my mom waiting on y'all for being here today for my dad and family. Y'all have read about his professional life in his obituary, and that's stuff Dad never really talked about. But the stuff that my hero did was with courage and with a touch of humor his entire life. Losing his job twice, but having the courage to bounce back both times. Starting his own business, that's courage. Not once, though, did he ever complain. I didn't know it back then. He was always generous, even in difficult times. I didn't know it back then, but during that year, Dad, Mom, and I, not once did we eat out at a restaurant ever for that entire year while he was starting his business. JC and Emma, y'all don't even know what that would be like, do you? But can you imagine that? I didn't even notice it when I was going through it, but looking back, my mom shared that story. We were going through some tough times. I remember I just had to have an $80 pair of running shoes for the high school cross-country team. My dad and Mom gave it to me, even though times were tough. I would have never asked had I known the challenges we were facing, but again, it was the courage from my dad and his continued generosity that got us through those times and stuck with me. My dad was at every ball game for me and even helped coach some of them, often after a long day in the office. He would help with my homework, and he'd always have something funny to share that made me laugh or smile. I only remember my dad being mad at me one time. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't use his belt on me. We called that firepower back in the day. But the one time I do remember him being mad at me was when he and Mom were at a stoplight, and I just zipped by in the first car they ever bought me. One of these guys over here was with me. He never found me that day because they basically were hiding me. I was going from house to house. Eventually, I had to face his reckoning and firepower when I got home. I was grounded, I think, for a couple weeks as well. But that is the one time that I've only seen my dad mad at me. And gosh knows, if he knew about half the stories, he would have been mad a bunch more other times than that. As we got older, he would share more stories about his life, and I would share some edited stories about my life with him. That time that he was in Vietnam, hearing those stories, 20-year-olds shouldn't have to go through that kind of stuff. But he did it. He faced it with courage and with humility. Not once did he ever boast about his actions for his country. He'd also share advice, sometimes when I didn't even ask for it or frankly probably didn't want it, but that's what a father is there to do. I still remember the day JC was born, and that was one of my dad's and mine proudest days. That photo that we have of 3 generations of my dad, myself, and JC, it's one of my favorites. JC, your Big D loved you, and he was proud of you. He and Mimi they made it to so many of your ball games just like they did mine, and y'all know my mom, they were always the first ones there. Not just first grandparents, they beat some of us parents there for our own kids to those games. And I know that you love Big D well too, son. And you love those trips that he provided when he took us to Disney and all the times of talking Gamecock sports. You were their buddy. Emma, you were and you still are Big D and Mimi's angel. They made so many of your dance recitals, dance competitions, and those cheerleading games too when you were a little girl. They loved having you and your brother up here at Camp Ballantyne for a few days every year. And that picture you posted on Instagram yesterday was so precious, sweetie. JC and Emma, he loved you both, and he spoiled y'all in many ways. Mom, he spoiled all of us. That was Big D, generous to everyone. Years ago, we had a real scare for my dad. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer, and of course, that got all of our attention. But not once did I ever hear him complain about it. He knew that God was in control, and he beat that, and he continued loving my mom, me, JC, and Emma, continued making many of y'all smile and laugh through the years. As one of my friends said in a message that he sent this weekend, which meant a lot, I quote, he said, "As a child, I remember thinking that most adults were pretty boring, but your dad was the coolest, funniest man I was ever around." Thursday, my dad, Big D, went home to be with the Lord with my mom holding his hand in the emergency room by his side like always, like she had been for many, many years, 60 plus years in total. I've got a lifetime of memories to keep me smiling and laughing, and even though I'm going to miss him greatly. I'll miss seeing his generosity and his humor touch the lives of others, and I'll miss the way he loved watching JC and Emma grow up and be successful at whatever they chose to do. I'll miss seeing them walking with my mom, holding hands like they always did, wherever they went. I'll miss my hero. I'll miss my dad. I'll miss Big D. Thank y'all for being here and being a part of his life.